Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the second half of our doubleheader. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth, the Motor City Manmouth. This is Inside the Pigskin tonight. I'm pleased to be joined by Candy Evelyn. Welcome back, Candy.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And Travis Holmes. Welcome back, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you for having me.
And my resident running back, Malfar Jr.
How's everybody doing today?
We're doing all right. And Will Vogel, my goodness, you find your way on these programs once a week, no matter how we figure it out. We don't plan you, but boy, when you at least I don't have to answer your questions in the chat room tonight because you get to talk about it. But let me tell you, your contributions in the chat room are mightily appreciated. Trust me, you are the life of the chat room. Well, I guarantee nobody like you. So let me go over an overview of what this show is all about. We're going to talk about Cam Newton. We're going to talk about how the Minnesota Vikings have struggled when it counts the most. And we're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys and some of the key pieces that they've added. And I have a Tom Brady nugget as well as a couple of other interesting NFL facts. With that said, okay, I'm going to take it around the horn, and we're going to start off right to left here. So we'll lead off with Mel Farr. Will there be a Cam Newton sighting in the NFL this year? My sources say that on his pro day last week at Auburn, he did not impress the scouts or teams. Most teams just aren't willing to take the risk right now. Much better and cheaper talent available. Set a member in attendance. Okay, Mel, what's your thoughts about Cam Newton?
Yeah, no, I don't think we'll see Cam Newton sighting. Can he? I mean, is what he said, is it true? Probably so. But right now, I think he should have he should have had this audition earlier in the offseason, not this late in the offseason where teams have already made decisions about what they're going to do as far as starting quarterbacks. And Cam is too big of a personality to be a backup quarterback. And it's not that he's disruptive or a bad teammate or anything like that. He's just a big personality. That's who he is. He's an alpha male. And him being an alpha male does not make for an ideal backup quarterback. And also with his talent, the first time that the starting quarterback struggles, I mean, we know he was a MVP in 2015. Now he's a long ways from that, but he's still young. He's a lot younger than some of the quarterbacks out there. Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers. Tom Brady just retired. There's a lot of quarterbacks that he's much younger than. Kirk Cousins. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks out there. Well, I don't know if he's younger than Kirk Cousins, but there's a lot of quarterbacks that he's younger than that. You would say that he deserves an opportunity. I believe he deserves an opportunity, but will he get one? I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, what are your thoughts about Cam Newton? Do you think we'll see a Cam Newton sighting in a training camp near you or near anywhere?
I got to experience Cam Newton first half of his career as a Carolina Panther fan. And he was good when he was in his prime. And then we brought him back after the Patriots cut him as like a media thing. I felt like it was a media ploy. And Cam Newton's not the same guy as he was when he was an MVP, when he led to the Patriots to the Super Bowl. In general, synopsis, no. Because, like Mel said, he's a alpha male. He wants to start. He should have put his name in the ring sooner when teams were looking for quarterbacks, aka the Saints, the Buccaneers, the Raiders, the Niners, maybe even. And I think it was too little, too late. Do I think he still has talent? Maybe a little bit gas left in the tank. But starter caliber, I'm sorry. I think the NFL owners and coaches have already chose their free agent quarterbacks, which we've already seen, and teams who are going into the draft looking for a quarterback, a la the Panthers, the Colts, the Texans. So Cam Newton, too little, too late. No, you will not get an NFL contract near you.
Good point, too, Will. I want to mention something while you mentioned that, okay? I think the one prime example that I should mention is Baker Mayfield. Had he have started the process earlier, I think maybe Tampa might have been a good landing spot for him. But considering he waited, and that kind of backs up your point, Will, as well as Mel, had he have started earlier, maybe he might have had an opportunity to go to the Buccaneers. But, Baker Mayfield's there on a very low-risk deal. So I wanted to throw Baker's hat into the ring. And with that said, I'm going to turn over to Travis Holmes to give me your take on Cam Newton.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to be unanimous on this one, and thinking that Cam's likely, or he's very unlikely, I should say, to secure a starting role situation.
Right.
And to Mel's point earlier, his personality, his presence is just a much bigger presence that you normally don't like that than what you normally expect of or want from your backup quarterback,
Yeah.
a la the Tim Tebow situation, even. And I know that's an extreme example, but even when you bring in Tim Tebow in as a backup quarterback or a tight end or whatever else,
Right.
that sound is always going to be in the background for your fan base, and that's the last thing you want for someone who is just potentially just a camp body, just a camp arm. And simply because of that, that's going to make it a very difficult scenario for anyone, unless maybe someone loses a quarterback training camp or something along those lines, and they're just looking for a veteran guy to hold the clipboard or just to give them the illusion of some sort of I don't know, consistency or veteran leadership or something along those lines, maybe. But outside of a situation like that, something that happens after the draft where a team just they have an open spot and they just need to get a guy in quick and something right maybe a week before the season, 2 weeks before the season, something along those lines, I can't really see how anyone would be comfortable biting that bullet. And it would have to be someone with a specific type of offense, maybe already have a running quarterback, so they're not changing the whole offense over. Baltimore Ravens or San Francisco, something along those lines. I don't know.
Yeah, but I like your example on Tim Tebow, though. I can tell you that right now. I really, really do. I mean, let's face the reality. When they brought him in to the New York Jets, okay, and good that Rick Curdy, who was on our last show, can't he read his comment? But I like your example about Tim Tebow, because when they brought him in as a tight end, to me that was a publicity stunt. But I think the thing is, when he went over to the Jets, where I think he should have went with the Jaguars back then, not later on in the game under Meyer, that would have been the thing. But Rex Ryan could sell he could sell vacuum cleaners for all I care, because he sold Tim Tebow on a bill of goods to become a wildcat quarterback is what he did. So, hey, you know what? If I need a salesman, Rex Ryan's my guy. Okay. Hey, my dad and brother, if you were looking for a window salesman many years ago, Rex Ryan would have been the guy. We can call him the glass man, but with all due respect, no, I think you're right. I think Tim Tebow's a great example. You don't want your backup guy making more noise than your primary guy, because who's the one who's going to be answering at those press conferences and all the listening back and forth. Go ahead, but you know what? Go ahead and Candy, read Rick Purdy's comments first.
Cam is a has-been. He's a backup quarterback, and he's massive delusional ego. Can't face it. He should go to the XFL or the USFL to get noticed.
That's Rick for you. That's Rick, always positive.
Yeah, he's harsh. He's half right, but mostly right. Just whew.
Well, that's
that has been part. That stings. That stings. I never was.
Well, that's why we call him Mr.
I wish he'd tell us how he really felt.
Yeah, that's why we call him Mr. Opinion, Mel, as you well know, for all this time. All right, Candy, you got the last word on Mr. Cam, no relation to Fig Newton cookies.
So Cam went out there and threw 30 passes, 30, with no defense. Can he still throw? Sure, he's got an arm, but does that mean he's NFL ready to start in the league and compete with all these young and other quarterbacks? No. Unless, like you said, you guys make some really good points. He should have done it earlier, before a lot of teams settled in. Yes, maybe will he get picked up by somebody that, if there's injuries, that he might be better than some of the backups that you already have on a team? Maybe. But that's the only way he gets in.
I think it's really telling that both the times that he's been available, that Ron Rivera didn't pick him up, and they haven't had a quarterback since he's been there. And I think that's really telling. That's really telling. I think it's saying a lot without them doing anything, because they're not doing anything.
No, I agree.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And by the way, I had no choice but to use a Chris Berman nickname, because Chris Berman is the king of them. But Mel, you make a great point. Ron Rivera, and Ron Rivera was going to bring him back. My goodness, who would at this particular point? Because nobody knows Cam's skill set better than Ron Rivera. And it's not like this is a first time that he's passed on him. Didn't he have another Charlotte quarterback? You might know this one. Well, that was a backup that Ronrivera took over to Washington. Is it kyleallen?
Allen, yes, sir.
Right, okay.
Kyle
So he
and
took
Taylor
him
Heineke. Heineke was also a former.
Yeah, but kyleallen, I think, was with him in Carolina. Correct me if I'm wrong.
He was,
right.
yes.
That's correct.
Right, so then Ron Rivera took him over there, but no Cam Newton sighting. All right, so with that said, we'll go on to the next topic. This one's a really interesting one. Then again, aren't they all? Well, when we find them out here, they always tend to intrigue me a little bit. But this one more so, Minnesota Vikings have struggled to win when it counts. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to list a bunch of franchises that have done well based on winning percentage. Okay. And I want to make sure everybody pays attention. And it's based on winning percentage and the amount of Super Bowls. Dallas is a 597 winning percentage with 5 Super Bowls. Pittsburgh at 596. Minnesota 562 with none, 0. And they've lost 4 times in the Super Bowl. Baltimore Ravens, okay, 561 with 2 Super Bowls. We know New England 561. Yeah, the same area code in Palm Beach County, but 561 nonetheless. It's 6. Couldn't help Palm Beach County reference. Green Bay 553, 4 titles. Miami Dolphins even have 2 at 552, even though they happened in the 70s. San Francisco 548 with 5 Super Bowl titles. Denver 546 with 3 titles. Kansas City Chiefs 546 with 3. The Las Vegas Raiders 532 with 3. The Colts, Indianapolis, and Baltimore 519 with 2, and LA Rams with 2. So with that said, okay, Mel.
What's the LA Rams winning percentage?
518. So there you go. That's where they're all over 500. Any take on this stat about why the Vikings, and you know what, I didn't mention the Buffalo Bills being over 4 in the Super Bowl, but again, they don't factor into the 500 club here, so that's why I didn't bring them up. But now, what's your take on the Minnesota Vikings not winning when it matters the most?
Well, you brought up Buffalo. I mean, it's who you play against in the other conference, and I think at that time the Steelers were doing what they're doing their thing, and I can't remember, but I think they might have played the Raiders one time too. I'm not sure.
Right.
So it just depends. And the Raiders were playing very good, and they had to get over the Steelers in order to get there. So it just has to do with who you're playing in the other conference. Unfortunately for Buffalo, they had to meet Dallas, San Francisco. I'm sure. I mean, there were some teams that were playing very, very well in the NFC when Buffalo had their run. So it's unfortunate, and it's been a long time since they've been to the Super Bowl. I believe all those Super Bowls were in the 70s with Bud Grant. God rest his soul. He just passed not too long ago. But he was a heck of a coach. He was a heck of an athlete as well. But he was a very, very, very good coach. But it's just it just has a lot to do with who they met in the championship game.
Good point. All right. Well, what's your thought about that?
It's very unfortunate. Those guys you listed above Minnesota has a lot of Hall of Famers, but Minnesota's had some great players. It's just been unfortunate. Look at the team from 98 or 99 that won 15-1. They lost to the Falcons in the, I think, NFC Championship or one of the playoff games. And it was Randy Moss's, I think, either first or second, one of his first few years in Minnesota. And then you got frantarkenton, you got Paul Krause, you got the Purple People Eaters, you got Ahmad Rashad. Like, they've had good teams in the past. They've just ran into tougher teams. They've ran into the Steelers, the Raiders. They just ran into dynasties. And if you can't stop a runaway train, what makes you think you can stop a runaway dynasty? Not the Vikings, unfortunately, because it's just their kryptonite.
Yeah, I love the frantarkenton reference. So, for a guy your age to be able to come up with frantarkenton. Who was the other name that you mentioned?
Paul Krause.
That's right, Paul Krause.
There was a lot of them.
Yeah, no, I know. I know that at that time, chuckforeman, I believe, was the running back, wasn't he? No.
Well, yeah, number 44.
Yeah, so
master of the spin move.
Well, yeah, no, he was a heck of a running back. He does. So good points. Well, all right. So what's your take on the Minnesota Vikings' lack of efficiency when it matters, Mr. Holmes?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of the gentlemen in the room have already made some extremely solid points. It really does come down to who you play against. And when I say who you play against, and we're not really referencing the teams, we're really referencing the quarterbacks. And we discussed this, a few months back when we last talked about, the different quarterback records. Because at the end of it, when we looked at that whole Super Bowl and playoff list, we looked at basically 5 or 6 guys who pretty much controlled the whole playoffs between, Peyton Manning, between Tom Brady, there we got the Pat Mahomes. We got a few other guys like in that Big Ben. Even you had basically those like 4 to 6 guys who pretty much controlled the majority of those games, and then you have a few other teams that were sprinkled in for this one season, the 2 seasons, and that's kind of what it came down to. Because I don't want to. I don't want to dump on Minnesota just because they are, to your point, a top 7 team in the regular season as far as their winning percentage. So they're getting to the postseason at least, or historically, they're around that wild card area. But then they're just a bottom 5 team, in the playoffs. And that probably is related to the quarterback specifically. I mean, a good long time recently, it's, they've had that average quarterback, that just average or below average guy who's not going to win you a Super Bowl, but he's absolutely good enough to make sure you don't get a top draft pick. And even when you have a solid team around him, well, that's what that results in, unfortunately. But there are worse teams that are either right below them or right above them. You got, Arizona Cardinals, you got Cincinnati Bengals, but we're not talking about those guys because they had that one good season, or that, those 2 good seasons where they won that magical, that Super Bowl run. If Minnesota gets that same fortune, we're not even having this conversation. It's just, hey, sometimes that is the luck of the, buzzsaw. You run into Tom Brady, who's just, setting records or something along those lines.
I should point out that the audio version of Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. So please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. So I'm saying it slow so nobody will say that I talk too fast tonight. It's not because I'm losing my voice. Just want to see if y'all can keep up with me. Please comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Send topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise, feel free to contact me at 954-304-4941. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and our YouTube page. And also, you can find these broadcasts on www.southfloridatribune.com as well. And, of course, I'm on Twitter at Tribune South. With that said, Candy Ebling, you're up. Minnesota Vikings, what's going on with them? Why can't they win when it matters?
I think all the guys have made good points so far. Definitely quarterback comes down, but I also think defense wins championships. And I'm not sure they've had really good caliber defenses that you could name, like all the guys on their defense are big names that really contributed too. So I think it's a combination of both.
Okay. Well, let's face the reality. Some of your best defenses have names after them. What, the no-name defense, the Purple People Eaters, and I can list them on and on and on. And a lot of the big defenses have actual names. The Steel Curtain is one of them. So, all right, let's go ahead and move on to the Dallas Cowboys. How much better are the Dallas Cowboys? They've added a couple of interesting pieces during the offseason. Stephon Gilmore comes to the Cowboys from the Colts. He's a cornerback, 2-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler, 2019 Defensive Player of the Year. Brandon Cooks, 6 1,000-yard seasons, one of 2 players with 1,000-plus yards with 4 different teams. The other one is Brandon Marshall, 4 seasons with 80-plus catches. Well, all right, you know what, Mel? We'll go back to you again. The Cowboys made some pretty good additions. How do you like America's team chances going in there? I mean, I happen to like both of these calls, but I'll ask you first.
I think all they did is got back to par. You look at what they lost, what they're trying to replace. They're trying to replace Amari. Can't think of his last name right now, but they're trying to replace Cooper. Right. They're trying to replace Amari Cooper.
Right.
So you bring in Brandon Cook. All right. Is he Amari Cooper? I mean, he's been successful in the league. He's had some 1,000-yard seasons, but he's also been hurt as of late. So, and he's a little bit old. He's a little bit older than Amari as well.
Right.
You lose you lose the offensive coordinator, which I think is huge, and you're going into a season in which you're going to have different play caller. And we know what happened with the Falcons when they lost their play caller. What happened to that team? The team has not been the same since Shanahan went and took the job over at San Francisco. And people never really, a lot of the talking pundits, they never talked about that. They didn't really see that. And I always said that was people kept predicting that the Falcons would possibly repeat and get back to the Super Bowl. And I always said, no, that's huge. I mean, I think they replaced him with Dirk Cutter, who I've never particularly cared for as a play caller.
Right.
I mean, Shanahan was very talented at what he does. I mean, they have an offense, they have a system that they run. Dirk Cutter doesn't have that same system. He has whatever his system is, and it's been so successful that it cost him jobs. So I knew that they were going to be unsuccessful. And I think, Mike McCarthy, we know he's a good play caller. I think Brett. I think Aaron Rodgers had a lot more to do with his demise than him himself. But still, I think everybody's ranting and raving about all these moves they've made. I think they're just trying to get back to par. They don't really have a lead ball carrier per se. I think they might have picked up somebody. But,
they have Pollard still. I don't remember.
I know they have Pollard, but he's coming off an injury.
Yeah, didn't Ronald Jones.
Okay, so you're trying to replace Zeke with Ronald Jones. Right. Ronald Jones couldn't get on the field with Kansas City. I mean, Kansas City was playing a 4th, 5th, 6th round running back was starting. Ronald Jones was about 4 deep on the depth chart there. So they just I just think I mean they made some splash. You get the wide receiver, you get the defensive back, but what did you lose? So I just think they got back to par. I'm not as excited about it as all the talking heads.
Then let me ask you a follow-up question, because you make an interesting point. Do you think that the loss of Kellen Moore is going to affect them that much, Mel? Kellen Moore?
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, there was internal. I mean, I think Kellen Moore. I think you're going to find out a lot more about Kellen Moore in San Diego, or excuse me, with the Chargers, because I think he was hamstrung in Dallas. I think Kellen is a lot more creative, I believe, than Mike McCarthy's a more old school. And I know he wants to run the football, but they did they did a lot of things with Aaron Rodgers throwing the football, but he wants to run the football. Kellen wants to throw it around the yard a little bit. He wants to spread it around a little bit. So he was kind of I think he kind of had a leash on him, and every now and then he get a little bit too creative or a little outside of what McCarthy wanted to do. He kind of pull his chain a little bit. So I think you're going to have an opportunity to see what he's capable of doing, especially with the quarterback that they have and the weapons that they have as well.
I get the feeling that if Kellen Moore has a good run with the Chargers, this might lead to a head coaching opportunity. But I'll ask the rest of you guys. Well, you're nodding your head. Well, so give me your thoughts on the Cowboys, and then you can follow up with the Kellen Moore thing, since you obviously seem to have an opinion on it.
I don't see a change. I think they're still going to be a good team in the regular season. I don't think they're going to have much success in the playoffs. Stephon Gilmore, he won the Defensive Player of the Year, and he's an All-Pro. But guess what? He's not the same player as he once was in New England or Buffalo. He was really good there. He was elite there, I would say, an elite corner there. And he's a lot older. He was with the Panthers, then he went to the Colts. Now he's with the Cowboys. Like, guy's probably near retirement, maybe a year or two away. But this guy's not the same as he once was. As for Brandon Cooks, he's great, but like the best ability is availability. And he's great with these 1,000-yard seasons, but you need to stay on the field and have consistency. Okay. So I think the Cowboys are staying put. Like, I don't think they did great moves. I don't think they did terrible moves. I think they're in the middle. I think they didn't shift either way. As for Kellen Moore, I agree. I think Kellen Moore is going to do great things with Justin Herbert. Don't get me wrong, Joe Burrow's maybe the best quarterback in the class of Herbert, but I think Herbert has the best arm. He has a rocket for an arm. And I agree, Scott. I think Kellen Moore, if he does really, really well with Herbert, and he gets a call from one of these GMs and says, hey, we just fired our guard. do you want to be our coach and we'll let you call the play calls? Yes, take it, because this guy is a great young mind, and it stinks because he had to deal with the mediocrity of Dak Prescott for all those years and McCarthy calling the play calls too. So yes, I think Kellen Moore will definitely get an NFL job within the next 3 years as a head coach.
Yeah, whether you know it or not, he started his career with the Detroit Lions as a backup quarterback, just so you know. So, all right, we'll turn it over to Travis.
Mm-hmm. Everything that they have all said so far, I'm just clapping my hands. You see, I'm actively clapping as soon as Mel mentions Kellen Moore. So I'll leave that to the second point. But to your first point, as far as the Cowboys, free agent additions, I'm not even sure that they're even the same as last year. Losing Zeke is absolutely beneficial. Like, he was really good at the goal line. I'll give him that. I'll give him credit for that. If you're talking efficiency, like the numbers bear that out from last year as far as the short yardage situations. But the touches that he was taking away from Pollard that weren't those, third and fourth and short or goal line scenarios, may not necessarily make up for it. Just simply put, Pollard was electric and Zeke was not. So just based on that, it's quite possible that they could be better in that area of the ball game. But Brandon Cooks is not Amari Cooper, right? Like, that's not. Come on. I mean, I like Brandon Cooks as a player, but that's just calling a spade a spade. And then you're talking, Ronald Jones being the short yardage guy for the team, to Mel's point, couldn't even get on the field in KC. So at the end of the day, what we're really talking about is they maybe best case scenario are the same team, but I honestly can't say that if I'm just being real with you. And then you add in the loss of the offensive coordinator, and then you look at who they replaced him with. I'm not going to slam, Brian Schottenheimer, but I'm also not going to say that he's a good offensive coordinator. I believe he's below average. Okay. I believe that either every time that he's been an offensive coordinator or passing game coordinator, the team has not looked good. Even counting the Drew Brees years, it was the only time that he didn't have a great season. Right. I'm not. Yeah. And then I actually am a fan of Kellen Moore also. And if you talk to a lot of the guys who watch the tape, I'm a guy who watches tape, but if you know what I mean, like guys who really know quarterback play and reads and things of that nature have been raving about Kellen Moore all last season. And those same guys are the guys that's saying, hey, that's just missing the read. So he's just not hitting the read. The first read on the route is this out route. He's not hitting it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all that to say is I believe that for the Chargers, I think their offense is going to look tremendously, different and so much better than it did last year. And I think the Cowboys offense is not going to look great, just based on that. So that if they're not winning games, 17-13 or something along those lines, based on that defense, I don't have that kind of confidence that they're going to be this great team. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if they don't make the playoffs.
Interesting. All right, Candy, your thoughts?
I don't know that they improved either. I mean, I agree with like all the points that have been out there. Like anytime you change offensive coordinator, I think that makes a big difference. And I think, yes, losing Zeke, they needed to do that. They needed to get some salary cap space back in there, but they lost some other people. And I'm not so sure their offensive line is as good as it needs to be. You want to win in this league and you need to protect your quarterback. Otherwise he keeps getting slammed and hurt. And, I don't think they necessarily improved enough that we think that all the hype that everybody's giving them, that they improved as much. And everybody's got to gel together. And it starts with your offensive coordinator on your offense. And if it's new, it takes a while to develop a chemistry with all of your guys. I just don't think they got better.
All right, the only thing I'll say about this is Brandon Cook, if he can at least get 1,000 yards for the Cowboys, he's certainly an upgrade over T.Y. Hilton, who they run in at the last minute. But they shouldn't have let Amari Cooper go in the first place. That's item number one. Two, if indeed the Chargers, are as explosive that they think they are, and many of us believe, he'll be bringing back the old days of doncoryell when they used to whip that thing all over the gridiron. And tell you, Eric Coryell was something unbelievable. And I
Finally
remember
got in the Hall of Fame. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Well, and I remember when I met Coach Marv Levy, over at Super Bowl 39, I think it was. I was covering it at the Steelers and the Cardinals, and I talked to Coach Levy. Said, "Man, you ran a great offense with that wing T offense. You remember that?" I said, "Come on, Coach. I know all about these things that they ran there." And he was pretty impressed. I spent some time with Coach Levy, and we talked. It was great. I met Ralph Wilson. I called him Mr. Wilson. You have to have respect for some, especially these older guys. But Coach Levy was great. I mean, I talked about the wing T offense that he employed with Kansas City. We know what he did in Canadian League. So if Kellen Moore could duplicate any kind of offensive success, welcome back, doncoryell, albeit you're in LA instead of San Diego. And that might be his road toward a head coaching, just like what happened with Eric Bieniemy with Washington, where if he succeeds under Rivera, that might be his ticket toward a head coaching job. You could see, if you connect the dots here, Bieniemy and Moore have success in other locations out of the shadow of Reed and McCarthy, and you might find yourself wearing a head coaching cap.
Moore get a job before Eric Bieniemy.
What's that?
Kellen Moore get a job before.
Well, I think so too. But you know what? Eric made the right call going to Washington to see what he can do. I think he has a better shot at getting a head coaching job with Washington. That way, he has his own identity there. But you're right. All right,
that's hilarious. That's even a true statement, though. You think about the job that Bieniemy has done and for how long he's done it, versus the job that Kellen Moore has done and how long he's done it.
The other thing is the philosophy of Ron Rivera is a lot different than Andy Reid's philosophy too. So I mean, he's going to be hamstrung there a little bit. Ron Rivera, because he's a defensive coach, he wants to play defense, and he wants to run the ball and he wants to play defense. I mean, you just see by who they have at quarterback. They don't have anyone near as talented as Patrick Mahomes, but it's because of his experience. I mean, they say, "Hey, we won a Super Bowl with Jim McMahon." Really, all Jim McMahon did, and what Jim McMahon did was his responsibility was to get the ball to Walter Payton, hand the ball off to Walter. That was his responsibility.
That defense in Washington is no slouch. They're pretty good.
That's true. But the main thing I want to emphasize here, though, and all of y'all have valid points. If and I want to make sure I preface the word if Bieniemy has success with a subpar offense and gets them to perform, it only enhances his chance of getting a head job under Rivera. Knowing that he's done, what's that?
Or it can end up like Byron Leftwich and awful.
No,
that's
exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm just throwing the hypotheticals out there. That's all. I mean, everybody has valid points. I just
Byron went from hot to not.
Yeah, right. No, he did. That's another story for another week. During the off season, I'll be curious to see where Byron Leftwich winds up. But I'm just saying that Bieniemy now, if he does well with Ron Rivera, and is able to generate some kind of life in that Washington Commanders offense, he will get more serious consideration. He may not get a job, but more serious consideration with what he's done. Time will tell. We'll slap a TBD on that.
A whole lot of consideration with what they have on their roster right now at the quarterback position. I mean, he should be first in line if he's able to do anything with that offense.
Yeah, no, I'm with you all the way, Mel. There's no doubt about that. If he does anything with that offense, and remember, these, they'll have a turnover next year.
God forbid they lead the league in scoring or anything like that, and he doesn't get a job. Well, that tells you something.
Yeah, he's not even a quality. Yeah, he's not even a quality coach right now, which is just wild.
Yeah, I know, it's too surreal how things are handled there. I got some guys get coaching jobs, and the others I have no idea.
Some guys get fired and get head coaching jobs.
That's true. Yeah,
get fired in college and get a head coaching job in the NFL. Man, where does that? How does that happen?
Yeah, that man's giving us a Cliff Kingsbury reference, and he's being nice about it.
I mean, even Adam Gase, he got fired and got hired and he was terrible in Miami. What made anybody think he was going to do anything good with the Jets? What did he do in Miami?
Well, yeah, you're talking about Adam.
What did he do in Miami that warranted him to get another opportunity?
I don't know. You know what? You know where you can find that answer? I'll tell you, everybody can find that answer. You ready? Everybody, your homework for next time here is to watch Batman and Robin and look up the thing called the Riddler or the Joker. And if you guys can go ahead and do that, give me an answer in about 2 weeks from now about why Adam Gase got hired in New York, then I'd like an answer. Okay. And anybody out there that's watching, listening to us, You can tell us why Adam Gase got a job. I don't know. I'll have to Google where I'm, see where he's at later, and we'll bring that up as a topic in a couple of weeks. So, with that said, last topic of the night. Tom Brady joins the ownership of the WNBA's Las Vegas Aces. Okay. Well, Mel, Tom Brady has a new job, I think, new interest. So what do you think about Tom Brady going to Vegas?
You can't let that money sit in the bank. You got to, that's what rich people do. They don't let money sit in the bank because it's not doing anything. I mean, it's not gaining, not appreciating in value. So, I mean, I think it's a great move. Something for him to do. This, that's the level that he should be looking at. And he's got a lot of relationships, obviously, that he's been able to cultivate over the last number of years, high level relationships. Like Magic Johnson and his relationships that he's been able to cultivate over, the last three decades. Tom Brady has that same type of access. So, he's got to take advantage of it. There's nothing wrong with it. The thing that really surprises me is that Tom is going to go into the booth, because that's going to, and not saying that, Troy Aikman is much different, because Troy's a Hall of Fame quarterback as well, but Tom was a different level type of quarterback. You go to 10 Super Bowls, you win 7, you're a different level type of guy. Like Peyton, he doesn't want to be tied down to a broadcasting job. That's why he hasn't taken a broadcasting job. Now, him and Eli do their little thing. They have their fun. They do it out of their basement. That's fun for them. The thing that surprises me is that Tom would take that type of job. I mean, I know they're throwing a whole bunch of money at him. It's kind of hard to say no when they throw that kind of money at you. But I think the last thing he would want to do is be confined to a structure, because that's what he's been in structure for the last 30 years dealing with football. It's always, now is the time for Tom to be Tom. I mean, I see he's down there in the Bahamas with his boys playing beach football. That's what he should be doing, trying to figure out a way to, spend all that money he had made. That's what he should try to do for the rest of his life. Try to see if he can spend it all, or if he can outlive it, or spend it all.
What do you think, Will?
I think it's awesome. I'm pretty sure he has a friendship with Kelsey Plum, who's the point guard of the Aces, and it's really good because it's good to put your money somewhere. I know Patrick Mahomes, I think, has a stake in the NWSL team and the Kansas City Royals. Right. So athletes are putting their money in wise things. And the WNBA is a good product. The Aces are the past champion of last year. They're probably going to be fighting for another championship this year. So it'll look like a really good investment for Brady. And also, you know what? Who knows? And I'm quoting you, Scott. You know what Tom Brady could do in a few years? This could bring the MLB to Vegas. This could bring an NBA team to Vegas. Who knows? And you also said this last night, and I said, yes, I'm going to say this next time I talk to Scott if I'm on the shows. This could be a stepping stone for him to go to the Raiders and be in their management or something like that, because you know who you're working with with the Aces? Mr. Davis. And you know what Mr. Davis also owns? The Raiders. And guess what? Guess who pursued you before you retired? The Raiders. So I wouldn't be surprised down the line if Mr. Davis calls Brady and says, hey, this gig with the networks and broadcasting, that's all fine and dandy. How about you come sit next to me and we'll make a championship caliber football team where you can help work with me.
Well, remind me when I see you in Charlotte to take a star and stick it on top of your forehead, because that was what I was going to say. But at least I know you were actively in the chat yesterday, so I don't have it. So I know what I don't have a problem with you saying that, because I know your comprehension level is awfully good. So I'm not going to even comment on the subject because you did it for me. So I'm going to move it over to Travis and Candy, and then we're going to go to party shots. You know what, Will? I got to give you credit, my friend. You've come a long way in the last couple of months. That's why you find ways to get on the air, especially when you're processing my lines and transferring them to the next night.
I don't know how I remember.
Hey, Vogel, there might actually be hope for you in the broadcasting business after all. Stick around me, kid. All right, that's all I can say. All right, Travis, I won't get laryngitis because of Vogel. All right, go ahead, Travis, before I say anything else. Go on.
Well, I mean, everybody's again. I love being in a room full of intelligent people who are thinking outside the box. So a lot of the points that have been made are, well thought out, well rounded, well founded. And at the end of the day, Tom needs something to do with that money. He needs something to do with that time. And I can't even say a lot of basketball players had ownership rights to different teams, whether it's hockey, whether it's NASCAR, different sports, things of that nature. That's been going on for decades. But now it seems that NFL players are finally starting to get on that same, get on that same boat. With Pat Mahomes, I believe Ward Dunn had ownership when I was coming up, and in some minor league team also. And now we have Tom, retiring, having ownership stake in the WNBA. The WNBA is an interesting one simply because most people who ever hear about the WNBA always think they don't make money, right? Like that's always the thought that immediately comes to mind, is because they don't generally make money. They're subsidized by the NBA. However, the team values, I mean, that's inflation. I mean, that's always going up, right? But there are 12 teams. They were valued at over $1 billion, during the pandemic. So they're even discussing adding one or two more teams. That's only going to go up. So it can't be a bad investment from that perspective. And to those other points. So as long as Tom just, I don't know, stays out of the way, I guess, it should be fine. But more importantly, he probably was able to purchase a much larger stake than he would if he was investing in any other team, because those teams are at best case scenario around $50 to $75 million a piece. Because again, it's 12 teams, about $1 billion. Like, all right, cool. Then you can probably have a pretty significant ownership stake at least in that, because you're buying something that's valued for a little bit less than an NFL franchise or something like that. So, hey, good job spending your money on something. Hopefully you actually like women's basketball, or otherwise it's just another toy to play with. But hey, good job, Tom.
Yeah, well, go ahead, Candy. I have a few things to say, but not to the magnitude of Vogel. But go ahead.
Tom Brady is considered to be the greatest quarterback of all time, but he's the first to admit that he wasn't even the best athlete in his family while growing up in California. Truth be told, the 7-time Super Bowl champion probably was fourth in terms of athletic ability in the Brady household. The three best, that would be his athletically accomplished sisters, who often outshined his brother. So with that being said, his upbringing around the three highly competitive and athletic sisters created a lifelong love and appreciation for women's sports. So when he attended a Aces game in May, he was immediately enamored. He loved the fans. He loved the passion and the excitement that the fans had for the game. And he decided, I'm worth $333 million. I can't put that all in a bank because I'm only insured up to 250. So let's figure out where else I can put my money to make some more money.
250,000 now, not 250 million.
250,000, right? You're correct. So you got to put it someplace else. Where are you going to put it? You might as well put it in something you want, like, enjoy, and can gain.
It's going to get you a nice return on investment.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, the Las Vegas Aces isn't too bad. Once upon a time, Bill Laimbeer, coach of Detroit Shock, went over to and he, built that Las Vegas Aces team so Becky Hammond could win with it. So more power to him. Now back to what Vogel said. Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm shocked. No one out of this group mentioned the fact that this is a recently divorced man that's going to be spending all this time in Vegas. That's going to be great. Like that sounds all kinds of interesting.
Watching women's sports and
right.
I like the 333 million. I like the 333 million because, as Candy will know, threes are wild with me, man. 33 is my lucky number, and anything
Who was it that they offered free services at one of them bunny ranches, at one of them ranches, if they came out to Las Vegas? No, I was reading an article about it. If somebody
wasn't the basketball player,
I don't know.
Can't remember.
I don't know.
Now I got to search it.
I just read this article last week, and they said if he came I'm trying to think. Oh, it was Aaron Rodgers. I think it was Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers came to, if Aaron Rodgers went to the Raiders, he get free services for life at a couple ranches.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was Jimmy Garoppolo last week.
Oh, right, that's right. It was Jimmy Garoppolo.
All right.
Right.
Oh, I had a quarterback up there.
Hey,
for whatever it's worth,
and you know what? He might take him up because he was dating a porn star.
Not that it really matters. If he ever makes his way to Reno, he can always go to the Mustang Ranch up there. I know. I was up in Reno like time.
What do you know about the Mustang Ranch, Scott?
I know about the Mustang Ranch. I'm not going to get more detailed about it. I will leave it alone. And that's okay. It's above your. Don't worry about it.
Doing some investigative reporting.
Yeah. I always do investigative reporting. Once you're a reporter and you're a journalist, you're always a journalist. That's all right, Candy. That was long before you were ever. I probably saw you at an old Milwaukee Brewers game at County Stadium. Didn't even know you were there. You never know. But I will say one thing about athletes that do pretty well after their playing days. So Candy and I can certainly refer to one. Brad Doherty didn't do so bad as the most recent Daytona 500 winner, riding Ricky Stenhouse to victory lane. So, Tom Brady, you know what? I'll go back to what Will said because he was paying very good attention last night. And I couldn't keep up with him fast enough in the chat room. Every once in a while, Will, if I can't keep up with you in the chat room and there's an opening on the air, I just put you on there and let you say it. But you need to be in both places. But no, he's right. I think that, he'll have a piece of the action with the Aces. I wouldn't be surprised at some point or another if he has, it doesn't hurt to have another good football mind with the Raiders, and they can use all the help they can get anyway. So,
he played with Jimmy G. He started above Jimmy G.
Yeah, he did. But you know what? Then he got Josh McDaniels. That stuff doesn't matter. Markdavis is one of the poorest owners actually in the NFL. And it's not like, he built that stadium on his own. He had help from the state.
It's not that he's poor. He's just not liquid.
Well, all right, but
he doesn't have as much liquidity as some of the other guys because you can't be poor and own an NFL franchise.
Yeah, but you know what? When you compare his wealth, though, with some of the other ones, Mark Davis, I know, is lower on the food chain. That's all I'm saying.
I understand.
I mean, you know what you're talking about, these guys. So, all right, well, we're doing an incredible job. So we're going to go to parting shots before everybody whacks me across the head. So with that said, Mel, give me a parting shot, my friend. Nobody's going to comment on. We'll just let them stand.
Okay, my parting shot doesn't have anything to do with sports, unfortunately.
Okay. All
right. Today is what, March 29th, I think is the date. And we've
30th, actually.
30th? Okay.
Yeah.
We've had 125 mass shootings in this country.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big problem that we have in this country that we need to address. I mean, we're one of the, we're one of the few industrialized countries that has to deal with this type of a problem, and it's because, we can't seem to figure out the problem. Guns are more important than kids, and I don't know why it is that these mass shooters seem to want to prey on kids in schools. Something has to be done, and we need to figure something out. Now, one side doesn't want to do away with the assault rifles. Another side, and that side also says we should arm teachers so that they can deal with these mass shootings. So you just want to put more guns out there, which more guns is going to lead to more deaths. I think the proper solution is to have fewer guns out there, and certain type of firearms really don't belong in civilian hands. The AR rifles don't belong in civilians' hands. There is no purpose for them other than to critically wound people. That's what they're designed to do. Nobody hunts with those types of firearm. So I hope at some point in time that the clowns that we've elected in Washington will come up with some type of solution and put our kids first. Because we're talking about our kids. Now, it hasn't hit, unfortunately, and I don't know for certain, I mean, it hasn't hit any of us that close where, we've lost a loved one. And I would hate, the hardest thing as a parent or a grandparent is, when your kids are outside of your home, because you can't protect them outside of your home. Once they're out, they're out. And all you can do is pray for them. Worrying about them is not going to do any good. You just have to pray for them. So I pray that, we are able to come up with some type of solution so that we can start putting our kids first and start saving our kids. And so that other parents don't have to go through the pain of burying their child, because a parent should never have to bury their child.
Well said. You know what, Mel? It's interesting. What you say is here in our neck of the woods in Deerfield Beach, everybody's heard of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. That still is a tragedy that occurred on Valentine's Day that still is fresh in our minds. And a football coach and a lot of people were lost because of this guy. And I still think that the shooter should get the death penalty, but I have a feeling he's not going to get it. I don't know, but what you're saying has a whole lot of truth. We see it around the country. It doesn't seem to be letting up. And, here in our South Florida, obviously, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas is fresh in my mind, and rest in peace and prayers to all the family, both not now with the situation you're talking about, with the folks in our neck of the woods with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, with everything they've had to deal with. Okay. With that said, go ahead, Will Vogel. Parting shot, please.
Yes, today was MLB opening day. It is the first time in a long while that all teams have play each other on opening day, and also we got to see our first guy get called out by the timing of the at bat. I think it was Rafael Devers was after a pitch was getting loose, getting ready for the next pitch, and he got timed out and called out. That is the first occurrence this year. Would I be surprised if there's more? No, I wouldn't, because there's a lot of new rules these players have to adjust to, even though they learned them in spring. We're humans, we're prone to error. But still, other than those things, I think it's going to be a really fun MLB season.
Fair enough. Okay, what do you have, Travis?
I would like to tip my cap to Mr. Mel Farr Jr. for talking about something that is absolutely important. And this may be a sports show, but we all have to live in this world when we get offline. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And I think most people, even on both sides of the line, actually, most normal Americans, 90% of Americans agree with the general background checks, on things of that nature. And it sucks that we're having to, have this argument about what's really going on. It's the politicians don't want to agree. And that's the biggest part of it. Is like, I know we're putting these crazy people in office because we're always giving the worst of the worst options, but that's kind of what it is. And I think, again, the majority of people, just people that we live with, neighbors that we live with, are in agreement with, hey, these things are what's needed for us to live out in this world, even though these politicians aren't doing, their job. So that sucks, but I appreciate you bringing that up, sir. And also, well, I guess for my parting shot, hey, it's always going to be the NFL. I've been banging this table forever that the NFL just simply doesn't want to get these calls right because they think there's some power that they're losing in having this replay be expanded. And we saw it with the pass interference challenges, how often or how infrequent that they actually overturned them, even though we have video evidence showing me that this was pass interference. So this wasn't. They made it near impossible for referees to truly use the video evidence to make real calls. And shame on the NFL for voting down the proposal to expand that to roughing the passer. They had an opportunity to actually get it right and maybe even talk about the pass interference challenge option, and they just chose to put their tail between their legs and just kind of say no, we're not going to get it right, and that stinks. But maybe they'll take some advice from if the SFL continues being successful or at least entertaining. Maybe if they do it long enough, then the NFL will finally as a conservative league it is, maybe they will eventually try to adopt some of these, things that they're seeing that if they're working for long enough in those leagues.
Okay, Candy.
Mel, thanks for bringing up. And I totally agree. Something needs to be done because the kids in the United States should not be afraid to go to school that they have to fear for their life. That's just horrible. With that being said, though, my parting shot has to do with I welcome all of you to go out and listen to Fire Up Florida edition that Scott did right before this show, because he talked about the Cinderella team from down here. And it's an exciting time for college basketball, especially if you live in South Florida. FAU and University of Miami are both in the Final Four. Congratulations to FAU. Your head coach will make less than the assistant head coach of UConn. And if you want to learn more about the differences and all that, listen to the Fire Up Florida. But congratulations to those kids, because they play in a small gym that has not much money put into that program like any other program. But to have the success that they're having is awesome. Good luck to you guys. I hope you take it all.
Well said. I was at Dusty May's press conference a couple of days ago. What a remarkable job he's done over at Florida Atlantic. He really has. And also a shout out to Nova Southeastern University, the Division II school that won it all at 36-0. A couple conservative parting comments, if I may. I'm actually pleased to see the Detroit Lions bring back wide receiver Marvin Jones, add leadership to the young receiver court. Hate to see Jacksonville lose them, but Jacksonville's pretty stacked at that position anyway. So DJ Chark went to the Carolina Panthers, should be a decent addition to you, providing, as you say, well, he has to have availability, and he hasn't had a whole lot of availability with Jacksonville and the Lions. We'll see if he can stay healthy there. But the Lions bringing Marvin Jones back, I think it's a $3 million deal with $2 million in incentives. More power to him. Also, I don't have a problem either with NFL owners approving a proposal allowing players to wear number 0. Big deal. Who cares? I mean, it is what it is. I've seen crazier things happen, but
you have to listen to the reasoning. I mean, they're running out of numbers.
Yeah, I know. But now the New York Yankees have an issue where they're running out of retired numbers, and now they're trying to get the managers and the coaches. Anybody ought to know it should be Will Vogel, right? That they're trying to, but I don't think the commissioner office is going to bite. They'll probably make them wear 100 or 200 before they even budge there. But
I saw a joke, Scott. I saw a joke real quick, and it said maybe they'll go to letters of the alphabet next.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. They're talking about the manager and the coaches not wearing them because they're wearing sweats. I saw Don Mattingly a lot last year wear a hoodie over the number. But don't hold your breath, Yankees. Okay, you either better slow down the retiring the numbers, or you know what? There's enough numbers to 1,000 that they'll just stick 150 on you for all we know. Who cares? But it doesn't matter. But I can tell you what, my parting shot, and there is no such thing here. It's for every one of you ones on this crew here tonight did a really good job with what we had to do with, and I enjoy working with classy people that really provide not only their expertise but their timely positive commentary about what we're trying to accomplish, and that's entertain and inform. So I'm proud of everyone, and I always enjoy having the crew that we put on here. So with that said, Candy, take her home.
So if you enjoyed this episode, that little red button in the lower right corner, hit it, subscribe, share it, like it, tell all your friends, and go and look at our YouTube channel. See what else you might like. It's South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you like the audio version of this broadcast, you can hear it on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcast. If you want to send us ideas, if you want to pop in on a show, email us some topic ideas, and you never know, you might be the next guest on one of these shows. Email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you would like to go to our website, check out some of Scott's writing, www.southfloridatribune.com. I've actually have pictures up there. All of our broadcasts are there. I would say you can see Scott on Twitter at Tribune South. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott at 954-304-4941. We broadcast these live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Back to you, Scott.
Thank you, Candy. Well done. All right. Well, it's an opportunity where everybody let everyone know how you get a hold of yourself. With that said, Travis, you can lead off, please.
You can find me on Facebook, Travis Holmes. You can find me on Twitter, Trav Likes Bacon. Don't ask. It's a long story, but short version is I'm crazy. We're getting to that draft season, so you can catch me here every 2 weeks in the off season, and every week during the season, as long as they'll have me. And I am your neighborhood Jacksonville Jaguars correspondent. Appreciate you having me.
Well, you know what, Travis, you're on the website, so you stay as long as you want to. I should point out there might be a programming note that you guys should be aware of, though. We may not be doing a Thursday show the night of the draft. We might be doing it on Tuesday night instead as part of a doubleheader. So that's something I'm contemplating. And it's my brother's birthday. I don't know if he'll be here in Michigan, but I'll probably want to watch the draft, and I don't want to compete against the draft anyway. So it's pretty hard to do that. All right. Well, you know what? Just give everybody an overview of where you are. Okay. Because I know you're involved in a lot. 2 shows of which I'm involved. Go ahead, Will.
Let's just say I'm on Basket Bros here and on Smoking Jeremy B's NFL Round Table.
You do a great job with us while you contribute in the chat. We're proud of you. Come a long way, kid. All right, Mel.
Let's say that your Basket Bros is on Sideline Sports so that
Correct.
people know where to find it.
It holds it every Sunday night, I believe 7:30, right? Well,
yes, sir.
Right, and I'm on, Basket Bros, longest pundit, good stuff over there. All right, well, Mel, go ahead.
Find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter at Melfar Jr. Find out what we have going on for the youth here in Georgia and also up in Michigan at melfar.org.
All right, Ken, do you want to give our info, or are you pretty much all set with what we?
I think I did.
All right, well, with that said, this concludes this edition of Inside the Pigskin. Glad you could join us tonight. We'll see you in about 2 weeks or so. And meanwhile, on behalf of Candy Abilene, Travis Holmes, Will Vogel, Mel Farr, thank you very much for joining us. We are out.